A months-long investigation reaching a turning point. Internal emails from the Portland Fire Bureau reveal a paper trail that appears to contradict what fire officials told KOIN 6 on camera months ago.
Okay, and investigator Elise Haas previously exposed potential fire hazards, even code violations at a newly built Habitat for Humanity site. She's here now finding new discrepancies.
So Fire Marshal Carrie Schimmel still disputes who has responsibility related to issues that could impact Fire Bureau response at a Habitat for Humanity complex in Southeast Portland, despite our investigative report and the Portland Ombudsman confirming the same major problems. Now, internal emails exchanged between top fire officials and inspectors suggest there's more to this story. A Habitat for Humanity homeowner initially filed a complaint with the Portland Fire Bureau last June after realizing their townhome complex in Southeast Portland doesn't have a fire lane. Frustrated by a lack of clear answers from the fire officials, these homeowners turned to KOIN 6. Our December investigation revealed issues with the permitting process, allowing code violations to possibly slip through the cracks. Our measurements show the buildings to be over 30 feet tall at their highest point. Per city fire code, that requires either an automatic sprinkler system or wider roads for aerial ladder trucks. This complex has neither. And with no fire lane signs or red painted curbs, illegal parking blocks critical access. Despite this, Jason Birch, who at the time was the assistant fire marshal, disputed our findings in an on-camera interview in September.
We were able to show that our ladders, ground ladders, are able to accomplish our goal of accessing the roof.
That's not what a May 7th report from the Ombudsman's office found. It revealed ladders won't work and that parking on sidewalks and the pedestrian walkway is blocking access for an aerial fire truck. Still, the fire marshal didn't budge when we followed up a week later. Do the Cherry Blossom townhomes need aerial access or will the ladders work?
They are not required for aerial access. Ladders will work.
The problem? Firefighters at Station 7 reached a different conclusion last year. Public records we just obtained show then Assistant Fire Marshal Birch received this email thread on June 13th. It shows a fire inspector riding to Fire Station 7. We were having some issues dealing with an HOA. Can I get you to go up there and put up a few 35-foot ladders on both sides of the street? Apparently, plans were not always followed during construction. We need to get a building height and decide the need for aerial access. Also, please look at the width of the road. It may be an issue. Firefighters visited the townhomes, then wrote back. 35-foot ladders cannot safely reach the roof at the driveway entrance. Other roof lines further in, a possibility, but on the edge of safe climbing angle. Estimate roof line at 30 to 31 feet for buildings in the photo. Aerial access can work, but requires non-parking compliance, especially in the left-hand driveway. On June 24th, a senior fire inspector backed that up, writing, "It is obvious the building was built with an elevation of 30-plus feet. This would again have a requirement for fire service aerial access." He went on to say, "I think having them get the rolled curb painted red, fire lane, no parking as soon as possible is what we can and should have them do as soon as possible." Despite that email thread, 3 months after those emails were written, the assistant fire marshal told us everything was fine.
We can operate our ladder to the fullest extent and access all of our equipment and be able to really act and function as we normally do on any fire situation or emergency situation without any delay and provide that level of service that our community would expect and would meet our mission.
But fire officials' emails continue to tell a different story, one where parking concerns and blocked fire access follow a pattern. Back on June 3rd, an email from Mark Cole, the fire inspector who approved the architect's plans, raises doubts. In it, he wrote, "Apparently these units were completed without sprinklers, which surprised me, although this is a Habitat for Humanity project, which may have had some other factors in play." He also noted that he cited the architect for missing critical elements that would have determined if sprinklers and other safety measures were required under fire code. On June 5th, a senior fire inspector wrote to Birch and others stating, "The road was not made for aerial access and I definitely saw illegal parking, but also no signage." Yet, when we asked Birch about cars parked on sidewalks and a pedestrian walkway on camera a few months later,
I didn't feel like at that time in my visits, which were in the last couple months, the parking concern wasn't truly demonstrated, but I could see the perspective from the concerned community member. On the other end,
This is what the parking situation looks like. Do you find that in violation of the fire code? Because do you think that you'd be able to get all of your apparatuses in if that's the parking situation?
with this picture and this demonstration, yes, our fire apparatus will be able to drive in here, park, set up, and accomplish all of our goals necessary for that situation, without a doubt.
But take a look at what Birch wrote to the HOA president on July 18th. He said that parking of vehicles in a manner that obstructs the fire department access at any time is prohibited. In the event of an emergency, any delay in response by our emergency crews caused by an obstruction of the fire department access lane can negatively affect the outcome of your emergency. Meanwhile, in a recent interview, the fire marshal still denies the parking here poses any safety risks. Are there parking issues that cause fire hazards here at the Cherry Blossom Complex?
Is there a parking issue? No, there's not.
Have you found any fire code violations here?
No.
Birch said the same thing in September. Have you ever physically been out to the site yourself?
I have, yes.
And did you notice any fire code violations while you were there?
I did not. I drove the site, I walked the site, I met other individuals at the site. I actually went by twice. I did not observe anything I would identify as a fire code violation.
Yet again, his own emails months earlier point out potential issues. Coin6 obtained this email that shows on June 24th, Birch wrote this to his fellow fire inspectors. The subject line reads, "Code violations on Habitat-built property," and tells his subordinates that the Fire Bureau will be addressing the violations. Next, on July 18th, he sent this letter to the HOA board president outlining the issues. He first pointed to vehicles blocking the fire access road, stating that obstructing fire lanes is a violation of Portland Fire Code. He cites more code violations of their failure to maintain the required minimum width of 20 feet for emergency vehicles and the HOA's lack of proper signage and markings to enforce no parking zones, despite being responsible for keeping fire lanes clear at all times. But it appears the Fire Bureau never followed through on enforcement. In recent weeks, Fire Marshal Schimmel made a public statement following a recent report from the city's ombudsman, which urged fire officials to address apparent parking hazards and the need for aerial truck access. Schimmel responded on May 7th, saying in part, "The role of Portland Fire and Rescue in the construction process ends once the design is approved. We have no authority over occupancy or parking." She doubled down on that in our recent interview.
Private residents, we don't have any jurisdiction.
That's not what fire officials told homeowners last August. In emails we obtained from the assistant fire marshal, he explicitly said that Portland Fire and Rescue has authority to regulate parking on private drives. According to Title 31, the provisions of the Portland Fire Code apply equally to both public and private property. This means that Portland Fire and Rescue has the authority to enforce fire code regulations on private driveways and complexes, especially when these areas are designated as fire lanes or are required for emergency access.
We reached out to Habitat for Humanity for comment, and their CEO, Steve Mezzanetti, said in part the Cherry Blossom community went through the full permitting process. The designs were reviewed and approved by the city, and the homes were built, inspected, and certified by the city as meeting code. So Mezzanetti says that the HOA and fire officials are fixing parking issues flagged by the ombudsman, but notes that no code violations were found, and fire officials say homeowners are safe. However, as we reported in our story today and in previous stories, the Ombudsman's report says that the buildings exceed 30 feet, requiring aerial ladder trucks, meaning the road is too narrow, and that parked cars have blocked access for regular trucks. We have also included Habitat's full response in our article at coin.com.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of contradictory emails and a lot of contradictory communications and a lot of contradictory information and when you were interviewing. But I'm struck with a crew actually went out there. They were asked to go test it and said, it doesn't reach unless we tell these cars they can't park there, and then maybe they'll reach. And those are the people you trust to go out there, the actual firefighters who went out there to test it and said, our ladder can't reach.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, fire code exists for a reason. It's not only to keep residents and homeowners like us safe, but it's also to keep firefighters safe. So when you have your firefighters going out there and saying, we're testing these ladders, these buildings are pushing like 31 feet tall, and this is on the edge of safe climbing angle. But yeah, it is pretty startling to see the fire marshal continue to say there's no problems here.
And it goes back to, you've been doing this story for months at this point,
Right.
and it's where is the accountability of what's going on here? And that stems from the homeowners and the people who live there, and their families and their kids have sounded the alarm to you that they just would like that accountability, and
Right.
they want some solutions here for
Exactly.
their homes.
Yeah, accountability is very important, especially when we're talking about safety. There's about 100 children who live in this complex, and a lot of their bedrooms are on those top floors. So that's why we are staying on top of this story, and we're really hitting home. They want to make sure that these ladders can reach those families in need.
All right, Elise, thank you as always. Good investigative reporting.